Have I so have I shared the screen?
Cannot see, Prabhu.
I will share the screen now.
I have a chance to say Dandavat.
Dandavat Prabhuji, Hare Krishna ji, Hare Krishna, welcome Prabhuji, Dandavat.
Sorry for joining late.
No worries, no
Hare
worries.
Krishna.
You can see the recording. Yeah.
Ji.
Okay. So a very
Hare
warm
Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Anuradha Mataji, welcome. So a very warm welcome to all the devotees to our Srimad Bhagavatam study session. Now we are on our 12th class and today we are starting a fresh chapter which is chapter number 4, and today's objective is to complete verses from 1st to 13th of this chapter. So this is the 12th class. Okay. Mangala Charan prayers, Rakesh ji, who is supposed to recite?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I am supposed to do it. Anupama.
Oh, Anupama Mataji. Okay, please. Yes.
May I start?
Yes, please.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurodaminitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavancha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Satvaitam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Very nice, Mataji. Thank you very much. Very nicely recited. Really appreciate. Okay, now we move to the next prayer. Can you recite this one as well?
Yes, I'll try. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritye Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha.
Excellent, Mataji. Thank you very much. Yes, very nice. Okay, now we invite Ishwar Prabhuji. Let me just do one modification in this slide. I will make it an animation. We will invite Ishwar Prabhuji from Rohtak, who will help us recap the summary of the previous class, 11th class. Prabhuji, kindly unmute and join us. You are on mute, Ishwar Prabhuji. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, we can hear you now. Yes, please
I'm
go ahead.
sorry if there was something wrong with my iPhone, but
No worries. Yeah.
hopefully you are all right now.
Yeah, we are able to hear. Please go ahead.
I'm thankful and glad to be a part of this small service given by you, Prabhuji, and which forms a very tiny part of your otherwise mammoth effort in familiarizing us with our spiritual texts. The task cut out for this evening for me is to recap and summarize the contents of class 11 on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3 and verse 35 to 44, where the very exalted mentor, Sut Goswami, brings forth some very significant truths and realizations on progressing well on spiritual life in Kali Yuga. So here is how he emphasizes and advises us to know everything and practice to be a part of spirited efforts towards ascendancy in spiritual life. So, having been through some very diligent explainings on various avatars, incarnations, vibhutis, and their source, Lord Krishna, and also about the imaginary material forms, Jiva and Virat Rupa, and also about self-realization, Sut Goswami then takes to describing and understanding the Lord. In verse 35, he gives description of the Lord and says, the Lord of our heart is unborn and inactive, as described by the learned men. It is also the most confidential truth of the Vedas. His birth and activities are different from the ordinary living beings who take birth and eventually die as they are bound by the laws of material nature. But the so-called appearance and disappearance of the Lord are not actions of material nature. They are the demonstrations of the internal potency of the Lord. His so-called birth and his activities are all transcendental, and simply by meditation on such activities, one can attain realization of Brahman and liberation from material bondage. Continuing further, he describes the qualities of the Lord and says, the good Lord acts pure and spotless. He creates, maintains, and destroys without being affected. He is within every being and is independent. The Lord is the creator, and we living beings are created only. He is Amog Leela, which indicates that there is nothing lamentable in his creation. He further says that the Lord is master of six opulences, six senses, much like the fragrance of a flower. And he further continues and tells that he is connected with his material creation very, very superficially, as one smells odor without being in touch with the odorous article, like a flower, I said. Non-godly elements, therefore, can never approach him despite all endeavors on their parts. In the next verse, verse 37, he says that there are some significant requirements uh, for getting higher on the path of ascendancy, to know the God. And where he says that the unintelligent cannot understand the Lord, just as foolish person cannot understand the activities and nuances of acting by an actor, the unintelligent cannot know the Lord or his activities, his name, form, etc., using their skills only, their mind and words. Even the mental speculators or philosophers or some more progressive believers cannot penetrate the mysterious region of transcendence and remain misled by the illusory energy or Maya. Then how then one can understand the Lord? He further tells us the way and says, only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of the Lord, and who carries the wheel of chariot in his hand, can know the creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence. The secret of entering into the kingdom of God is the good Lord is very affectionate. He himself guides the pure devotees towards the path of realization due to their constant engagement in the loving service of the Lord in spontaneous affection. So this is the best part of it, that the Lord is taking full interest in his devotees, and he is always there at their beck and call. Then the fruitive activities and speculation, etc., are no qualification for entering into the kingdom of Lord. Having said that, those words, the Sut Goswami now encourages the assembled sages by appreciating the merits of their queries on transcendence, Vasudeva, and the knowable. And in the next verse, he appreciates those things and he tells the sages attending that gathering that only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant, for such inquiries involve transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universe and guarantees cent% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. The personality of Godhead is the last word in the absolute truth. The impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma, Supersoul, etc. are included in the knowledge of personality of Godhead. So one who knows the Godhead can automatically know all about him, his multipotencies and his expenses. And having done full justice to the discussions on Purusha Avtaras, Leela Avtaras, with additional inputs and insights into the matter, Sut Goswami now turns his mighty uh, uh, might of a learned mentor to answer question 6, which says, where did religious principles take shelter after the Lord leaves for his own abode? And towards that hand, he picks up Bhagavatam and tells us some really startling or revealing facts about Bhagavatam. In verse 40, he says, the uh, the transparent spiritual master Sut Goswami vouches for the uniqueness and legitimacy of Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Purana as the spotless, sound representative of all Vedic knowledge and history. He went on to describe Srimad Bhagavatam as the literary incarnation of Lord Sri Krishna, and therefore it's non-different from him as far as its potency for worshipping in place of the Lord is concerned. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect, and can be fully trusted as a true representative of the Lord in our ascendance on the ladder of transcendence. The bottom line here he says that Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. In the next verse, he continues and says, he told the gathered sages at Naimisaranya that Srimad Bhagavatam was delivered by the most respected self-realized saint Sri Vyasadeva to his equally exalted son Sukdev Goswami, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literature and histories of the universe. Hence, it is very authentic, very sublime for spiritual pursuits. And under no circumstances we should be misled by the propaganda of some vested men with poor fund of knowledge, who accept the history of the world from the time of Buddha, since 600 BC, and take the earlier histories in Vedic literature as figs of imagination. On the contrary, we need to believe the stories of Purana and Mahabharata, etc., as actual histories, not only of this planet, but also of the millions of other planets within the universe. He further says, Srimad Bhagavatam is a Mahapurana connected with the activities of the Lord in different times, in different places, and different atmospheres. It is the cream of milk ocean of knowledge. Then he also tells the gathering that Srila Sukadev Goswami, the topmost personality of all the realized souls, spoke Bhagavatam to King Parikshit Maharaj, who sat near Mother Ganges, observing fasting until death and surrounded by the great sages, including their present teacher, Suta Goswami. He was lucky to be hearing Bhagavatam from His Holiness Sukadev Goswami. Now, in the next verse, verse number 43, he answers the question 6, and says, he further emphasized that Bhagavatam remained the most important sheet anchor of spirituality for people of Kali Yuga. After Krishna departed for his own abode, taking religion, knowledge, etc. along with. And in such a darkness of ignorance, Srimad Bhagavatam is just like a sun. The main, it can be easily taken as the main sequel to be in constant touch with the light from the Puranas. Our Kali Yuga population is just a royal addition of the animals. We cannot see beyond our subtle mind, intelligence, and ego, and are happy and proud on our achievements through science and technology and materialism, forgetting in the process that real religion is to know God, our relationship with Him, and our duties in relationship with Him, and to know ultimately our destination after leaving this material body. And if man in this age want to see real light of life, they must also take to read, listen, and absorb the contents of the two books, Bhagavad Gita, the preliminary study, and Srimad Bhagavatam, the full and final study on achieving the aim of life, that is God realization. Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum of life of Lord Sri Krishna, and Lord Krishna's life personified, we can say. Now, towards the end, he emphasizes the importance of learning Bhagavatam through succession or following parampara. He says that once one has to learn Bhagavatam from the representative of Sukadev Goswami and no one else, if we want to see Krishna in its pages. Simple hearing is not enough. One must realize the text with proper attention. No one can give rapt attention in the absence of purity of mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in actions. And no one can be pure in actions who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating, etc. So, to see Krishna in the pages of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, one should adhere to the above instructions in letter and spirit, and only then that these two primeval texts can act as panacea for achieving self-realization in this age of Kali. With these words, I finish my summary, and thank you all for giving me the patient hearing, and I'm really happy about everything. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ishwar Prabhuji. Thank you very much. It was a very nice presentation of the summary. Really appreciate. And now, what I will just share with you is that till three chapters, what has happened is 6 questions were asked in chapter number 1, and the answer of those 6 questions were done in chapter number 2 and chapter number 3. Now, the 6 questions actually can be divided into 3 themes. So the first question and the second question was, the answer was bhakti. Then the third, fourth, and fifth question is about avatar. So the theme was actually Lord Krishna. So the first theme is bhakti, the second theme is Lord Krishna, and the third theme is about where did the question number 6 was about where did the religion took shelter, and the answer was Srimad Bhagavatam. So just remember, in the first 3 chapters, the 3 themes have been discussed: bhakti, Lord Krishna, and then Srimad Bhagavatam. So Sud Goswami, while explaining bhakti, gave a little elaborate discussion about various other aspects of bhakti. Then about when it is described about Lord Krishna, a few other things have been discussed when discussing about the Lord. And then Bhagavatam in the end, ultimately that has been discussed. So this is the sum total of 3 chapters. Now let us start our fresh discussion for today's session. So this is the overview map of chapter number 4 and what you see in this map, there are total 33 verses, and today we are targeting the first 13 verses. and in the next class, if possible, we will try to finish the remaining 20 verses and complete the whole chapter. I will see if it can be managed, but in today's class we are going to deal with the 13 verses. Now, after the end of third chapter, the description has been by Sud Goswami that religion took shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So if somebody takes shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, actually they can realize Lord Krishna as it is. So it is a replacement of Lord Krishna is Srimad Bhagavatam. That was the answer. So after hearing that answer, the natural reaction of the sages in the assembly was, now tell us a little bit more about the history of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's how the discussion now further progresses. So this fourth chapter is about the questions, the follow-up questions from 1 to 13. These are the questions that are asked, and then the answer starts to follow from 14th verse onwards. So you would see that till the end of Canto number 1, these three questions actually have been answered by Sut Goswami. What now will be asked by Shaunak Rishi, who is the leader of the assembly at Naimisharanya. So now, today we will be asking for recitation by following devotees. Last time I think we did it together with Manish ji, Mangala Mataji and Anita Mataji, and today we will do it with Anuradha Mataji, Rakesh ji, Jeevan Radha Govind Prabhu and Vrindavaneshwari Mataji. So are you ready, dear devotees?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So we will give opportunity first to Anuradha Mataji, then Rakesh ji, then Jeevan Prabhu, and then Vrindavan Vaneshwari Mataji. Okay. So Anuradha Mataji, you are ready? Could not hear you. I hope
Yes,
you are...
Prabhu.
Okay, very good. So
Yes, Prabhu.
let me
Can you
get
hear
my...
me, Prabhu?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Let me get my Bhagavatam in front of me. Okay. So in the first verse, what is going to happen is that the leader of the assembly of sages, whose name is Shaunak Rishi, so Shaunak Rishi will be rising up and appreciating Sut Goswami, and then he will actually start to ask questions on the behalf of the sages that have been assembled. So in this very first verse, the quality of the leader of the assembly has been described. So Shaunak Rishi, you can see in the picture here, Shaunak Rishi is the leader of the assembly, and these are the sages assembled. So why only Shaunak Rishi was chosen? So the qualities of the leader of the assembly have been described in this verse. So please, Mataji, recite with me. Vyasa uvacha
Vyasa uvacha
iti bruvanam samstuya
iti bruvanam samstuya
muninam dirgha satrinam
muninam dirghasatrinam
vriddha kulapati sutam
Vridda kulapati sutam
bhavruchah shaunako bravit
bhavanicha saunako pravit
bhavruchah shaunako bravit.
bhavaricha saunako pravit.
Very nice. Okay, let us see the meaning of these lines. Iti bruvanam. Iti bruvanam means on hearing Sut Goswami speak thus. So far Sut Goswami has been answering the 6 questions, and here Shaunak Rishi, after hearing Sut Goswami speaking the way he spoke, then what happens? Muni Nam Dirgha Satrinam. Muni Nam Dirgha Satrinam actually is referring to all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony. And then Shaunak Muni, who was the elderly learned here is being referred as Bhavracha, leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony. So Muninam Dirgha Satrinam. Dirgha Satrinam means they had assembled there with lot of time at their disposal. They were going to engage themselves in a prolonged yajna for the benefit of the people of Kali Yuga. So that is why it is mentioned as Dirgha Satrinam. And then Iti Bruvanam, then Shaunak Muni, who was the elderly learned leader of the assembly. So elderly is Vruddha, learned is actually Bahavrachaha, and then leader means Kulapati. So he was the elderly, he was learned, and the leader of the assembly. Then congratulated Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. So congratulated means samstuya. So this word actually comes in the first line. Congratulated Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. So what is the translation? On hearing Sut Goswami speak thus, Shaunak Muni, who was the elderly learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. Now here in this verse, Srila Prabhupada in his purport actually highlights the qualities of the person who would congratulate the speaker in the assembly. So it is not that anyone or everyone can stand up and congratulate. So there is a decorum, there is an etiquette that has to be followed when we are sitting in a assembly of learned people. So there is a learned speaker, and the assembly is actually represented by a learned person within themselves. So the idea of that learned person is, or the leader of that assembly is, that he should be elderly, he should be learned, elderly and learned. So that is what Prabhupada in the purport is trying to explain. So Mataji, can you read from the this place qualification?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Qualification of the leader of the assembly. In a meeting of learned men, when there are congratulations or addresses for the speaker, the qualifications of the congratulator should be as follows. He must be leader of the house and an elderly man. He must be vastly learned also. Sri Saunaka Rishi had all these qualifications.
Yes, Mataji. Okay, just wait for a minute. In the meeting of learned men, when there are congratulations or addresses for the speaker, the qualifications of congratulator should be as follows. He must be the leader of the house, so people should have respect for him. They should accept him as the leader of the house, and an elderly man. So naturally, if a person is elderly, he has more experience, is more wisdom, and so on. So that is certainly there. And in the Vedic tradition, the age is respected. He must be vastly learned also. So he should not be okay, although it may be an elderly person, but vastly learned also. So this is the qualification. So Sri Shaunak Rishi had all these qualifications. So Prabhupada tries to emphasize, just to give you some taste of the etiquettes and how the discourses in the spiritual assembly actually work. Okay, now from this point, Mataji.
Yes. Qualification of the speaker of Bhagavatam. He must have full confidence in the previous Acharya, and at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner.
Yes, Mataji. Just stop here. He must have full confidence in the previous Acharya. And at the same time, he must realize the subject matter. So there are 2 points. Confidence in the previous Acharya. So here we should understand, when we are speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, actually we are representative of the parampara. We are not something like we are here sitting and speaking just what comes in our mind or with our own whims and fancies. We should be representative of the parampara. We should all have digested all the summaries, all the outcomes, all the summarized, condensed essence of the parampara, the message of the parampara, and that we should represent. So we should have full confidence in the previous Acharya. So it is not that when we go to this assembly, we are not confident about our own parampara, and then we are doubting the parampara. No, it should not be like that. We are completely confident, and then we are going. At the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for a particular circumstances in a suitable manner. A very important point. Now, when we are speaking to an assembly, we don't speak uh, simply what we have learned from the teacher. Learned means or heard from the teacher. So our teacher might have taught something, but our job is not to repeat that thing verbatim. We cannot repeat that verbatim. So the point is, we must realize the subject matter. Realize subject matter means we should understand the message, the knowledge that the teacher wants to convey to us, and then according to our own qualities, according to our own presentation style, according to the circumstances that we see in front of us, we should present it in a suitable manner. Now, circumstances in a suitable manner, what does it mean? It could mean that sometimes we may speak to some children, sometimes we may speak to some very experienced group of devotees, sometimes we are talking to maybe a specific category of devotees, maybe we are speaking to brahmacharis, or maybe we are speaking only to the ladies, or maybe we are speaking to maybe corporate people who are coming from corporate background. So whatever message we are trying to provide to them, we should digest it, we should assimilate it, realize it so nicely that we can mold the message without losing its content to the audience as per the circumstance. So that is the idea. Okay, now the next line, Mataji.
Yes, sir. The original purpose of the text must be maintained.
Yes,
No
Mataji. Yes, just 1 minute. So
Yes.
the original purpose of the text must be maintained. So we are not expected to twist the meaning of the text. We are supposed to mean the same thing, but maybe we can present it in different words, in different language, or maybe making it more simple, making it a little more, keeping it a little bit more complex for a complex audience, and so on. But the original purpose of the text, the original meaning or the purport of the text must be maintained. So that is the parampara. Yes. Okay.
No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience.
Yes. So no obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. Like you see in our classes, we are trying to make it interesting. We are making the slides, we are adding pictures, we are doing some coloring of the slides, and maybe we are trying to involve people to recite verses, to read the purport points, etc., etc. So we are trying to make this subject matter enlivening, interesting enough for the audience to grasp the point and feel nourished, feel enthusiastic, feel kind of inspired in the message, and so on. So that is the idea. Okay, thank you, Mataji. Now this is one slide specifically for those people who like to speak, who like to present classes, who like to share the knowledge with the wider audience. Now this is one please formula given for the speakers of any discourse, specifically the spiritual discourse. Here PLEASE actually represents something different. So P stands for practical application. So when we present a discourse, we should present it in a way which should connect with the people. Practically, they can identify, okay, what we are hearing now actually makes some sense in my own life. It has to have some practical application. Then lessons learned. Lessons learned would be that, okay, lessons learned would mean that in the text there should be some points which are actually teachings from the scriptures. Teachings from the scriptures, for example, Atithi Devo Bhava. Atithi Devo Bhava means when you see a guest, when you receive a guest, you are actually receiving somebody like a demigod. So this is a lessons learned. This is something I learned, how we should respect the guests that come to our house. Then examples. Examples like we did this class on avatars. So in the avatar, we were describing you Vibhutis and Shaktyavesh avatar. So we gave you example. So the example of Vibhutis is such and such personality. The example of Shaktyavesh avatar is such and such personality. We should give examples. Then we should give analogies. So analogies, we also discussed, like there is a cloud in the sky or there is a dirt in the air. We gave analogies. So analogies make a very difficult spiritual subject matter very easy to digest. So, like in Bhagavad Gita also, when we study, we have several analogies. For example, when we describe the body, so we give this analogy of a chariot. So in the chariot there are 5 horses. Each horse represent one sense organ. Then the reins are actually the mind, and then the driver actually is representing intelligence, and the passenger in the chariot actually is the soul, and the whole chariot is compared to a body. So when we give this analogy, the complicated subject matter, spiritual subject matter, become very easy. And then S stands for Shastra, stories. Shastra references actually mean when you are discussing something, then you can quote from the Shastra. Like maybe you are discussing from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, you are explaining some verse, but you can quote from Srimad Bhagavatam. So this verse actually comes in the Bhagavatam also. This verse comes from the Upanishad. Like this, you can elaborate upon your explanation. The stories, many people relate very quickly with the stories. So if you can find a relevant story, an interesting story, you can add in your discourse, which makes the point very clear. And then elaboration. Elaboration means, for example, we just now discussed a verse, and in this verse, as I was discussing in our previous class, there's a condensed information in these verses. So you need to unfold these, you need to unzip these information and elaborate it properly for your audience to understand. So it is not necessary that you do all of them in your discourse, but sometimes all of them or sometimes some of them. If you choose this approach, your presentation will become very lively, it will become very useful. Okay, now we go to the next verse. Mataji, you please once again
Yes,
recite.
Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Now in this verse, Shaunaka Rishi praises Suta Goswami. Shaunaka Uvacha
Shaunaka Uvacha
Suta Suta Mahabhaga
Suta Suta Mahabhaga
Vadano Vadatambara
Vadano Vadatambara
Katham Bhagavatim Punyam
Katam Bhagavatim Punyam
Yadaha Bhagavan Chukha.
Yataha Bhagavan Sukaha.
Very nice, very nice. Okay. So this verse has been spoken again by Shaunak Rishi. You can see here in the picture Shaunak Rishi, and sitting in front of Shaunak Rishi is Suta Goswami in the assembly of sages. So Shaunaka said, Suta Suta Mahabhaga, Suta Suta. So Suta Suta is actually not a grammatical mistake, but Suta Suta is something which is out of very delightful way, out of very nice and pleasing way. He's addressing Suta Goswami. So in when he's doing it in 2 times, is actually it is actually he's very curious to know. Oh Suta, please explain this Srimad Bhagavatam to us. We are really eager to hear this Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is actually meaning Suta Mahabhaga. Mahabhaga means you are most fortunate. You are most fortunate. And then Vadano Vadatam Vara. Vadano. Vada means please speak. Please speak. We are eager to hear. No, Vadatam Vara. Vadatam Vara. Vadatam Vara means Vadatam means speaker. Among the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, you are actually Vara. Vara means you are the topmost. You are the best. You are one of the best. And respected Vara of all those who can speak and recite. All those who can speak and recite is actually Vadatam. So is represented to the communities of speakers of Srimad Bhagavatam, and you are one of the choicest of those. Then Katham Bhagavatim Punyam. Please relate to the pious message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Katham Bhagavatim Punyam. Punyam actually is pious. Bhagavatam is Srimad Bhagavatam. Kindly speak, kindly narrate these stories from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yad aha Bhagavan Chuka. Chuka actually is here is referring to Shukdev Goswami. Bhagavan is something referring to Shukdev Goswami means it is very Shukdev Goswami is a very powerful sage. Yad aha means which was spoken by. Spoken here means aha. Yad aha by the great and powerful sage Shukdev Goswami. So here Shaunak Rishi praises Suta Goswami with very appreciative words. He's calling him very respectful among the community of speakers of Bhagavatam, and then he's showing his very eagerness by narrating it Suta like this. Okay. Anuradha Mataji, please read.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Professional and impersonalist reciters of Bhagavatam. Generally, the so-called Bhagavatam reciters are either professional readers or so-called learned impersonalists who cannot enter into the transcendental personal activities of the Supreme Person.
Yes, Mataji. Just
Okay,
wait.
Prabhu.
Here. Yeah. So here,
Shall I continue, Prabhu?
Mataji, just for a 1 minute, I will
Yes.
just explain this. Otherwise, it will
Yes,
become too long.
Yes, Prabhu.
So here, Prabhupada is mentioning the difference between professional and impersonalist reciters. Professional and impersonalist reciters. So two categories are being discussed here. One is a professional reader, and then the learned impersonalist who cannot enter into the transcendental personal activities of the Supreme Person. So generally the so-called Bhagavatam reciters are either professional readers or learned impersonalists. So two categories have been identified by Prabhupada. Now each of these two categories does something special, does something which is actually related to their category. So Mataji, can you read from here?
Prabhu. Such impersonalist twist some meanings out of Bhagavatam to suit and support impersonalist views, and the professional readers at once go to the 10th canto to misexplain the most confidential part of the Lord's pastimes.
Yes, so there are two very important points. Such impersonalists, so two categories, impersonalist and professional. So what does impersonalist do? Impersonalists twist some meanings out of Bhagavatam to suit and support their impersonalist view. To suit and support their impersonalist view. So they have impersonalist view. Now who can tell me from the class what is an impersonalist view mean? What does impersonalist view mean? Can somebody tell?
Nirvisheshvadi.
Yeah, that is a translation, Mataji. Nirvishesh means which is not Vishesh.
Who do not believe in the form of God.
Who does not
Doesn't believe in the form of God.
Who does not believe in the form of God. So, but we are bhaktas, we are devotees. We also say Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. So we also believe in we also believe that Lord could be formless. So we also believe in that. But what is impersonalist view?
Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya.
There will not be bhakti then.
Yeah. But we also see that, we also understand that Lord may not have a form, and that is Brahman.
Yes. So Brahman cannot be worshipped in a relationship.
Okay, but that is okay. But how would you? What would be the most correct statement which we cannot identify any flaw with? What is that kind of impersonal view? Can somebody mention in one word, one line?
Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya.
Yeah, that is something which is their inclination, that they would lean towards only Brahman, and they would actually want to reject the material world. That is certainly their viewpoint. But I am looking for a little more specific answer here. So
Mayavadis.
No, Mayavadis could be.
Jnana Yoga.
Sorry, Prabhu.
Jnana Yoga. Followers of Jnana Yoga.
Yeah, Jnana Yoga. That is. But what is their viewpoint? What is their viewpoint?
Lord can be perceived in many
Moksha.
different ways. It doesn't have to be like a personal God. It can be many ways.
Okay, that is okay. One answer. It cannot be a personal God. So that is something close. We are going close. Okay, let me end the suspense. See, the idea is their understanding of absolute truth is that it is actually impersonal.
Prabhu,
Yes.
does that mean impersonal means like Bhagwan as a person is not there only? That type of a belief.
Yeah, that's what I was coming at, Mataji. So if you remember in the beginning of the classes, the very first chapter, the very first verse, we discussed about Satyam Param Dhimahi. What is the absolute truth? And before reciting that verse, what did we say? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we discussed Vasudevaya. Now Vasudeva is a name. Now name, we don't give it to, the name is to be given to the person. So the point here is the impersonalists think that the absolute truth is actually not a person. The absolute truth is not a person. And when we are talking about Lord Krishna, Lord Ramchandra, Lord Nrsingadev, actually they have come from this impersonal absolute truth. However, the reality is the other way around. The reality is that the absolute truth is a person, and it also has an impersonal aspect. It also has an impersonal aspect, that is the Brahma Jyoti of that the personal absolute truth. That is the Brahma Jyoti of that personal absolute truth is the impersonal aspect of that absolute truth. So that is the difference. So do you understand this point? I just want to check from the class. Do you understand this?
One more time. One more time, please explain.
See the absolute truth is what? Janmadhyasya yataha.
Yes.
Absolute truth is Janmadhyasya yataha. Janmadhyasya mada means everything comes from the absolute truth. Everything is the source from the absolute truth. But that absolute truth is what? Lord Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That is the absolute truth. And Lord Krishna has a form. Lord Krishna wears pitambar dhoti. He holds a flute. He has all kind of leelas. He has all kind of names. So he's a form. He's a person. So absolute truth is a person. And from this absolute truth comes the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. So do you understand now?
Yeah, yeah.
But the impersonalist viewpoint is that absolute truth is an impersonal Brahma Jyoti. And Lord Krishna, Lord Ramchandra is actually coming from this impersonal Brahma Jyoti. You understand the difference?
So are they are like the same human being, something that impersonal.
It is not human. The Lord is not a human being. Lord is not a human being. Lord is a Lord's body and Lord's soul is the same. It is spirit. It is spiritual. So impersonalist view think that absolute truth is an impersonal Brahma Jyoti. It is, and then the personal thing, the personal forms like Lord Krishna, Lord Ramchandra is coming from this impersonal, but it is other way around. From Sakar, Nirakar comes, not from Nirakar, the Sakar comes. That is the idea. Okay.
Can we say that it can address as a Nirakar as well as the Sakar?
Yeah.
Sakar is in front of you.
The Lord
Nirakar
is. Yeah. So I will summarize. The Lord is both Sakar and Nirakar.
Yes.
The Lord is both Sakar and Nirakar. But Nirakar comes from Sakar, not the other way around. Nirakar comes from Sakar, not the other way around.
Okay.
Okay, that is the idea. Impersonalists think that Sakar comes from Nirakar. That is the impersonalist view. So if you want to test an impersonalist, if you go out in the society and you want to test who is an impersonalist, you ask him one question: what is your conception of the absolute truth? परम सत्य की व्याख्या आप कैसे करते हैं, कृपया बताएं. तो जो the person who will be a devotee, he will say param satya means Lord Krishna, satyam param dhimahi, Srimad Bhagavatam, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva, Janmadhyasya yataha. That you can answer it. But if the person says that absolute truth is actually the big all pervading consciousness, all pervading white light, bright light, then you understand you are dealing with an impersonalist. That's the idea. Okay. And then the professional readers at once go to the 10th canto to misexplain the most confidential part of the Lord's pastimes. So what are the most... Yes, Mataji?
Prabhu, just one small interruption, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Can the belief of the Islam religion you can categorize as impersonal?
Mataji, it's a complicated question. Islam,
because they believe in formless, no, Prabhu?
Yeah, they believe in formless, but in the Islam also you would find a lot of description about he laughs, he is very merciful, and so on and so forth. So there are personal attributes also in Islam, and I am actually not an expert of Islam, so cannot really answer it. To some extent you sound correct, but I need to refer to some people to answer you properly on this.
Oh, thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, yeah. And then
Guruji, can I interrupt? And
Prabhuji,
explain on this?
let us take this discussion at the end of the class. You can
Ji, ji. Ji,
keep the
Guruji.
point. You can keep the point in your pocket because I have to cover a lot of topics.
Ji, Guruji. Sorry, Guruji.
No worries, no worries.
Dandavad.
Yeah, okay. Now here they are identifying professional leaders. At once go to the 10th canto to misexplain the most confidential part of the Lord's pastimes. Now, can somebody tell me what is the most confidential part of Lord's pastime? What exactly is being talked about here?
Gopi Lila Prabhu, Ras
Ras Leela, correct. Ras Leela. So this comes in Ras Panchadhyayi in Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are 5 chapters where Ras Leela has been described. And what could be the misexplanation of Ras Leela? What could be your guess?
Mundane relationship.
Mundane relationship. This is simply a samsari relationship, like we see a relationship between a man and a woman in the material world. There's something similar, but that is not the idea. So the professional leader, just to extract juice out of it, just to gain some popularity, just to create some mass appeal, they would misexplain the most confidential part of the Lord's pastime. So these are professional and impersonalist reciters of Bhagavatam that we need to be careful about. Okay, now Anuradha Mataji, for you this is the last reading. Can you read? Okay, maybe let me give you just questions about the history of Bhagavatam. So now in the third verse, Shaunak Rishi will ask the first question, and that will be about the history of Bhagavatam. So Mataji, can you read from here in the green?
Yes, Prabhu. In which yuga, at which place, for what reason, and by whose inspiration did Vyasadeva compile the Bhagavatam?
Yeah. So I have not mentioned the Sanskrit words here, just to save on some time, because this is a simple storyline going on. So here, in which yuga, at which place, for what reason, and whose inspiration. So there are 4 points: yuga, place, for what reason, and under whose inspiration did Vyasadeva compile Srimad Bhagavatam. So there is nothing much to discuss and explain here. And now from verse number 4 to 8, the question will be about Shukdev Goswami. So here I would like to clarify to the devotees here that the questions now being asked by Shaunak Rishi, there are typically 3 categories. So the first category is about the history of Bhagavatam. So the first theme is about, the question is about Bhagavatam. Then the second category is, the second question is about the speaker of Bhagavatam. And the third will be the hearer of Bhagavatam. And who is the hearer of Bhagavatam? Parikshit Maharaj. So in the first 3 chapters, there were 6 questions. 6 questions, the 3 themes. What were the 3 themes? Bhakti, then Lord Krishna, and then Bhagavatam. So these were the 3 themes in the first 3 chapters. Now in the 4th chapter, another set of question is going to come. And in this set of question, there are 3 categories. Tell us about Bhagavatam history. Tell us about the speaker of Bhagavatam, which is Shukdev Goswami. And tell us about the listener of Bhagavatam, which is Parikshit Maharaj. So these are the 3 categories that will be asked. Now, this is the question about Shukdev Goswami. So he has already asked this question about the history of Bhagavatam, which is in the verse 3. And now qualities of Shukdev Goswami is being narrated. Before they are asking question about Shukdev Goswami. Before asking about Shukdev Goswami, there are some discussions about the qualities of Shukdev Goswami. So Anuradha Mataji, your last verse, can you please read from here?
Yes. Vyasadeva's son was great devotee and equibalanced monist, whose mind was always concentrated in monism. He was transcendental to mundane activities, but being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person.
Yeah, okay. Now here you will see in this verse, there are few words which you need to maybe understand a little bit. Vyasadev's son was a great devotee. Tasya putro mahayogi. And equibalanced monist. Equibalanced monist. Monist actually is referring here to Brahmavadi. Brahmavadi means Shukdev Goswami actually when he took birth, he was a Brahmavadi. Brahmavadi means he was actually a liberated soul. Liberated soul means who would be attracted towards the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. So that is, these people are known as Brahmavadi. So one category of people is Mayavadi. Mayavadi is different and Brahmavadis are different. Mayavadi thinks that the Lord body, Lord form is actually a Maya. Maya means, like we human beings have this body which is made up of earth, air, fire, water, ether. Similarly, they also think that the Lord body is actually made up of Maya. That is why they are known as Mayavadi. But Brahmavadis are different. Brahmavadis are those people who are attracted towards the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. So they are attracted towards the Brahman. That is why they are known as Brahmavadis. And the quality of these Brahmavadis are, they are actually liberated soul. Liberated soul means they don't have the dirty things in the heart. Lust, anger. What is that? Leg pie. Lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy. They don't have that. If you remember, in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we have read Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atmana Shochati Na Kankshati. That somewhere in the 54-55 verse range. Yeah. So that is the equibalanced monist, whose mind was always concentrated in monism. He was transcendental to the mundane activities. Transcendental to the mundane activities. Because he was a liberated soul, he was a pure soul. That is why he was not attracted towards normal mundane activities, normal worldly activities. But being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person. So he was unexposed. Unexposed means he was not exposed to the worldly discussions and worldly activities or worldly things, worldly thoughts. So if you look at him, he would appear like an ignorant person, that as if he doesn't know anything, as if he doesn't know anything about the world. Certainly he did not know much about the world, in the sense that he did not care about the activities of the world, and he was transcendental to mundane activities. Now in this case, in Prabhupada's purport, if you read, Prabhupada is actually referring here to one of the verses from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and that verse is Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagrati Sanyami. So if you read second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the last verses, I think the second last verse or the last verse, this verse comes. This verse actually explains that for people who are spiritually inclined, the mundane activities actually are non-attracted to them. And then people who are inclined towards worldly activities, the spiritual activities appear very boring to them. So that verse actually means that for the spiritually enlightened person, what is night is actually day for the materialist, and what is night for the materialist actually is day for the spiritually enlightened person. So that is the idea. He was transcendental to mundane activities, but being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person. Okay, now we go to our next speaker, Rakesh ji. Please, Prabhu, you help me reciting this verse. Okay, now we have this verse which is of 14 syllables. You can feel it. It is a bit longer. Can you see this, Rakesh ji?
Yes, Prabhu.
Now the verse is the meter is Vasanta Tilakam. We probably will discuss this meter in our shloka memorization and recitation class, and it is sung in a different melody. If you devotees have heard the singing of Brahma Samhita, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venu Kvanantam Ravinda Dalayaksham Barhavatam Samasitam Sundarangam. Like this. This is the melody of this verse called Vasant Tilakam. So, Rakesh ji,
Yes,
please join with me. Drishtva nuyantam rishimatma jamapyanagnam.
Drastvanuyantam vrishim atmanjam
Apyanagnam.
apyanaganam.
Drishtva nuyantam rishimatma jama apyanagnam.
Drastvanutam vrishim atmajam apyanaganam.
Devyo hriya paridadhurna sutasya chitram.
Devayo hriya paridadhurna sutasya chitram.
तद्वीक्ष्य पृच्छति मुनौ जगतुस्तवास्ति
तदवीक्ष्य पृच्छति मुनौ जगदोस्तत्वास्ति
श्रीपुंविदानतु सुतस्य विविक्तदृष्टे.
श्रीपुंविदानतु सुतस्य विविक्तदृष्टे.
Thank you very much. So you did a good job. So this is a 14 syllable verse known as Vasant Tilak. Now you will see in this particular verse the purified vision of Shukdev Goswami has been described. Now what is the translation? Rakesh ji, can you read from here?
Yes, Prabhu. While Shri Vyasadev was following his son, beautiful young damsels who were bathing naked covered their bodies with cloth. Although Shri Vyasadev himself was not naked, but they had not done so when his son had passed.
Okay. Next line.
The sage inquired about this, and the young ladies replied that his son was purified, and when looking at them made no distinction between male and female. But the sage made such distinctions.
Yes, okay. Now this is something which probably most of you would relate, because we have briefly discussed this particular story or pastime in our previous classes. So where, if you remember, Sut Goswami started to speak, and then first of all he pays obeisances to Shukdev Goswami, his own spiritual master. And there he talks a particular verse while offering his pranams, and then at that point we had discussed this story. So we know that Shukdev Goswami was in the womb of his mother for almost, I think, 14 years, if I recall correctly. And then,
16.
sorry, Prabhu, 16 years. Okay.
Yes.
So 16 years he was there in the womb, and then he was not coming out. He was not coming out because he was afraid that if he would come out, he will get contaminated. So he came out after 16 years, and as soon as he came out, he actually left the home. And when he left the home, Vyasadev, who was his father, ran after Shukdev Goswami. And while this was going on, they happened to pass by near a pond where the heavenly damsels or beautiful young damsels were bathing in that pond, and they were not having clothes. So when Shukdev Goswami actually passed through from that pond, the young damsels who were bathing naked, they did not cover their bodies looking at Shukdev Goswami. Although Shukdev Goswami himself was unclothed, but they did not cover their bodies. However, when Vyasadev came running after behind Shukdev Goswami, Vyasadev didn't even look at these damsels, but the damsels actually covered their bodies, just looking that Vyasadev actually was approaching towards this pond. So through this verse, what is being mentioned here is, the mention is that Shukdev Goswami actually had a very purified vision. His eyes was very pure. When he would look towards the living entity, he was not looking towards the living entity as if he's distinguishing that you are a male or you are a female. He was looking at the living entity with the eyes, with the vision of a Samadarshi, Brahmana Samadarshina. We have read this verse in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that the vision of a learned soul, a real Brahmana, is that he is Samadarshi. He looks everything as same. So similarly, this Shukdev Goswami was looking at these damsels with a Samadarshi vision. He was not looking at their bodies. He was simply interested in their spiritual soul that was there inside their body. That was the idea. Now let us see a little detail of how Srila Prabhupada explained these points. Rakesh ji, read the first point first. Yeah.
Analogy to explain the vision of Shukdev Goswami. The ladies who were bathing could understand the mind of a man simply by studying his demeanor. Just as by looking at a child, one can understand how innocent he is.
Yes. So the ladies, sometimes when the ladies are walking maybe in the outside world, and if some lusty person passes by and look at them, the ladies will quickly recognize, no, his eyes are actually bad. He's looking at me with bad intention. So something similar Prabhupada is writing here. The ladies who were bathing could understand the mind of a man simply by studying his demeanor. Just as by looking at a child, one can understand how innocent he is. So sometimes the child, when we look at the child, the vision of a child is very innocent. He doesn't have any malice in the heart. So that is reflected in the eyes of the child. So that is the analogy that Prabhupada is giving, that Shukdev Goswami's vision was something very similar to the vision of a child, very pure. Okay, now the second point, Prabhu.
Why the damsels covered themselves on seeing Vyasdeva? But when his father passed, the ladies quickly dressed. The ladies were exactly like his children or grandchildren, yet they reacted to the presence of Vyasdeva according to the social custom, because Sri Vyasdeva played the part of a householder. A householder has to distinguish between a male and female, otherwise he cannot be a householder.
Yeah. So the point here is, when we were discussing about vision of Shukdev Goswami, and then somebody might get this question. Now, if they covered their bodies by looking at Vyasdev, does that mean that Vyasdev actually was a lusty person? No, that is not the idea. So in order to clarify this point, the idea here is that Vyasdev, when he came, he was actually, Vyasdev didn't even look at these ladies, understanding that there are some ladies bathing in the pond, and just by getting that situation, oh, there are some ladies actually from a far distance, somebody is bathing in the pond, and then he didn't even look at them. And then but then why that the ladies covered their bodies? Because it was out of social custom. So Vyasdev was an householder, he was a grahastha, and when the ladies actually were near a person who is a grahastha, and they were not their husband, then the ladies are expected to cover. They are not supposed to expose themselves. So that is the idea. So it is not that because Vyasdev was having any bad intention, the ladies covered their bodies, but actually it was out of social custom. Okay, the last point, Prabhu.
What is the reason for attraction for opposite sex? The outward dress is made of matter by material nature to attract the opposite sex and thus keep one entangled in material existence.
Yes. So here the point being made is that Prabhupada writes this in the purport, that why there are male and female attraction in the world. This is actually answered in this purport. Prabhupada says it is because the male is given a body which actually naturally is attracted towards the female body, and similarly the female body which feels the attraction towards the male body. This is mainly because the nature actually designed this so that they are kept entangled in the material existence. The outward dress is made of matter by material nature, Prakriti. Prakriti gives us this dress so that there is an attraction. So there is already design, already it is engineered. The attraction for the opposite sex is engineered when the material nature gives this body to male and the female, and thus keep one entangled in the material existence, so that they can come together, they feel attraction towards each other, and then keep on enjoying each other, and then that would mean they are simply entangled in this material existence. Okay, now Rakeshji, you need to read this. Yeah. So this was a question about Shukdev Goswami. Now, as I mentioned to you, that there are three themes: question about Bhagavatam, question about Shukdev Goswami, and question about Parikshit Maharaj. So these are the questions about Shukdev Goswami that the Shaunak Rishi is asking. Prabhuji, can you read from here, from the green?
How was he, Sri Sukdeva, the son of Vyas, recognized by the citizens when he entered the city of Hastinapur, now Delhi, after wandering in the provinces of Kuru and Jangala, appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded?
Yes. So again, I have skipped the Sanskrit words just to save a little bit on time. The translation is something very similar to a storyline, so there is not much philosophical in the verse. There, the point is, when Shukdev Goswami left his home, he moved towards the Delhi region. That was in the past known as Hastinapur. And when he entered inside the Delhi city or Hastinapur city, then after wandering in the provinces of Kuru and Jangala, appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded, how did the citizens of Hastinapur recognized Srila Shukdev Goswami? So Shukdev Goswami was unclothed. He was, as we discussed, he was looking ignorant. He was looking dumb, retarded. He did not give any impression of a learned person, like in the minds of a worldly person. A learned person would be well dressed. His behavior, his appearance, his style of walking, maybe style of doing few actions, etc., would be a little bit more sophisticated and so on. But Shukdev Goswami did not had any such sophistication. He was naked. He was not appearing very learned in appearance, etc. So the question of the sages was that when this person actually went to Hastinapur city, he entered into Hastinapur city, people or citizens of the city might have watched Sukdev Goswami. Then how did they reacted? How did they actually behaved towards Shukdev Goswami? That is the answer. That is the meaning of this verse. How did they recognize that actually is a very learned person? Okay, now the seventh verse, Prabhuji, can you read the blue part? Oh, just Prabhuji, just 1 minute. I had extracted one point from the purport of the sixth verse, and let me first of all discuss this. So in the purport of the sixth verse we just discussed, Prabhupada makes a point. Prabhu, can you read from here?
How to recognize a sadhu? A sage is not therefore recognized by sight, but by hearing. One should approach a sadhu or great sage not to see, but to hear him. If one is prepared to hear the words of a sadhu, there is no profit.
Yes, so Prabhupada makes a very good point. Prabhupada is saying here that somebody is a sage or not a sage. It is simply can be known if once he starts to speak. The moment he starts to speak, you will recognize actually he's a learned person, is a sadhu or a sadhu. That is the point. Then he's making this point that one should approach a sadhu not to see but to hear him. Many times you will see that people, when the sadhu comes, they want to have darshan. Prabhuji, I want to have darshan of this Swamiji, I want to have darshan of this sadhu, etc., etc. I want to take the blessings of sadhu. Certainly that is good. The darshan are also purifying of a sadhu. But the most important point is we should be very eager to hear from the sadhu. If one is not prepared to hear the words of the sadhu, there is no profit. That is the main point Prabhupada is making. If we are going into the proximity of a sadhu, we should hear something from the sadhu. That will actually purify our consciousness. That will transform our heart. That is the idea. That will bring us closer to the God. Okay, now the seventh, Prabhu, please read from the blue one.
How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage, making it possible for this great transcendental essence of the Vedas, Bhagavatam, to be sung to him?
So now this is Shukdev Goswami, who just took birth and ran from his house and has entered Delhi. How in the whole world Parikshit Maharaj would come to know that Shukdev has come and entered Delhi, and now I need to approach Shukdev Goswami and read and hear Srimad Bhagavatam Shukdev Goswami. So they wanted to know the events, how the events unfolded. How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage, making it possible for this great transcendental essence of the Vedas, Bhagavatam, to be sung to him? So here, Bhagavatam actually has been mentioned in this verse as the great transcendental essence of the Vedas. So that is what Srimad Bhagavatam has been mentioned, described in this verse. Okay, let us move. So we have 4 people to cover, and okay, so we can afford one more verse to Rakesh ji. Now, this is also related to the previous verse, Shukdev Goswami's exemplary behavior. Now we are back to the normal Anushtup Chand. Okay, Rakesh ji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Sagodohan matram hi.
Sagodohan matram hi.
Graheshu grahamedhinam.
Graheshu grahamedhinam.
Avekshate mahabhagas.
Avekshate Mahabhagas
Tirthi kurvanstadashramam.
Tirthi Kurvansa Tad Ashramam.
Yes. So let us see what the meaning is. Sa go do hona matram hi. Matram here means what? Matra, like in Hindi we hear matra, badi ki matra, choti ki matra, there is matra. But matra also means quantity. And the matra we were just discussing, that choti ki matra and badi ki matra is also actually quantity. Quantity of what? Sound. One is long sound, one is short sound. So matram here actually means the duration of time. Sa go dohana matram hi. So go dohana. Go dohana means when you milk a cow, when you extract the milk from the cow, it takes some time, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever. People who are experienced in milking a cow may add here how much time does it take to milk a cow. But my idea is maybe half an hour, 1 hour or so. Sa do go dohana matram hi. So the amount of time it would take to milk a cow. Shukdev Goswami would stop at the door of a householder for only that much duration, only long enough for a cow to be milked. Shukdev Goswami was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder. Graheshu Graha Medhinam. Graheshu Graha Medhinam means a householder. Only long enough for a cow to be milked. Probably here the color coding has been exchanged. So the red in this should be green and the green here should be red. So please take care of that. And then why you do like that? Avekshate Mahabhagas Tirthi Kurvam Stad Ashramam. So he would stay there only for 30 minutes or 40 minutes till the cow is milked. For what reason? Only for the reason to sanctify their residence. Tirthi Kurvams Tad Ashramam. Their ashram, their grahastha, their household, just to make that household tirthi. Tirthi means purifying the place. So what is being mentioned here, and let us try to connect with the previous verse also. So what did we study in the previous verse? In the previous verse we studied in the previous verse, what did we study? How did it so happen that King Parikshit met the great sage, making it possible for the great transcendental essence of the Vedas to be sung to him? Okay, this is related to King Parikshit. And in this verse, what the sages are telling, that when Shukdev Goswami met Parikshit Maharaj, he spoke Bhagavatam for 7 days. But Shukdev Goswami was not a person who would stay at one place for 7 days. He will stay at a place only for go dohana matram, only for long enough for a cow to be milked. That is the only amount of time he will spend at a one place. Otherwise, he will keep on moving. He will keep on going on. So how it happened that when he met Parikshit Maharaj, he could stay there for 7 long days. What was the reason? Please, can you explain us to that? Now here, Prabhupada explains few things about ideal behavior of a sannyasi. So Rakeshji, please read from here.
From his activities, those who are in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of Godhead should learn that they have no business with householders save and except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge.
Yeah, so the question is answered here. Why would Shukdev Goswami stay only for 30 minutes? It is being mentioned that people who are of sannyas order, who are renounced order, they should not actually delight in staying with the people who are householder, who are rich, who are opulent. They should stay only for that duration in which they can enlighten these people for the transcendental knowledge. For only that duration they should stay. Next line, Prabhu.
One who is in the renounced order of life should not be allured by the glamour of the householder's worldly possessions and thus become subservient to worldly men.
Yeah, so they should be very careful. They should not get attracted and carried away. Oh, this person is having so much opulence, he is having a good wife, he is having so many children, and then he is having such a big house, so much opulence. The sannyasi should not feel attracted toward all this. Sannyasi's behavior is only to enlighten these householders towards the transcendental knowledge, towards the spiritual goal of life. And that is why Shukdev Goswami would stay only for Godohana Matram. That is the reason. Okay, now we invite our next supporter, Jeevan Radha Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay, now we have completed two question about Bhagavatam, question about Shukdev Goswami. Now we are moving to questions about Parikshit Maharaj. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 5 verses, questions about Parikshit Maharaj. So we will give 9 and 10, verse number 9 and 10 to Jeevan Prabhu. Okay. Abhimanyu Sutam Suta. Prabhu, I think you are on mute.
Sorry. Abhimanyu Sutam Suta.
Prahur Bhagavata Uttamam.
Prahur Bhagavatottamam.
Tasya Janma Mahascharyam.
Tasya Janma Mahacharyam.
Karmani cha granihi cha. Karmani cha granihi na.
Karmani cha grinina.
Wonderful. So the question about Parikshit Maharaj is, kindly mute yourself. Yeah, thank you. It is said that Maharaj Parikshit is a great first-class devotee of the Lord. Abhimanyu Sutam Suta. Abhimanyu Sutam means Parikshit Maharaj was the son of Abhimanyu. Prahur Bhagavata Uttamam. Bhagavat Uttamam. Uttam Bhagavat means he is a very great devotee. He is a great first-class devotee of the Lord. And Tasya Janma Mahascharyam. Karmani cha Granihina. And his Janma and his Karma are actually Mahascharyam. Mahascharyam means they are actually wonderful. They are full of wonders. They are not ordinary. They are not run of the mill. Please tell us about him. Cha granihi na. Granihi means kindly speak those to us. Granihi naha. Naha means us. So please read from here, Prabhuji.
Purport 1.4.9. Why birth and activities of Parikshit Maharaja are wonderful. Birth is wonderful because in the womb of his mother, he was protected by the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu, just 1 minute. So if you know the story, when Uttara was conceived with the Parikshit Maharaj, then Ashwathama hurled a weapon, Brahmastra, while on Parikshit, just to completely annihilate the dynasty of the Pandavas. So with that intention, he released that Brahmastra weapon. But the Lord actually entered the womb of Uttara, and there he protected Parikshit Maharaj from that Brahmastra weapon. So that story will come later in the Canto number 1. But now here, Prabhupada is giving it in the purport why the sages are saying that the birth and the activities of Parikshit Maharaj was actually Ascharyam, Maha Ascharyam, very wonderful. That is the answer Prabhupada is giving briefly. So next one, Prabhu.
His activities are also wonderful because he chastised Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow.
Yeah, so later on you will see this story will also come where Kali Yuga personified, here mentioned as Kali, he chastised Kali because Kali was trying to give harm to a cow. He was trying to attempt to kill a cow. So the cows are supposed to be protected. Cows is a very useful and a very sacred animal, and it has to be protected. So these activities are wonderful because he was trying to prevent Kali to attempt to kill a cow. Yeah.
His death also is wonderful because he got previous notice of his death, and thus he prepared himself for passing away by hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord.
Yeah, so his death is exemplary. Parikshit Maharaj's death actually is exemplary. So we all know we are going to die one day. But Parikshit Maharaj, actually, when he understood that he's going to die within 7 days, normally a person, when he would know that he's going to die, his life will be miserable. His life will be very difficult to meet and to go on. But Parikshit Maharaj, unaware of all these disturbances, he actually immediately got into the business, the real business of life, which is hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord. So that is why his activities are wonderful. Last line, Prabhu.
During all the days he heard Bhagavatam, he did not take food or drink, nor did he sleep a moment.
Yeah, so he was completely absorbed in hearing Bhagavatam, and that should be the. I'm not saying that when we are reading Bhagavatam, we should don't take food or drink, or neither we sleep. That is not the message. The message is he was completely focused, absorbed, making the best use of time. Similarly, we also need to make the best use of time available to read Bhagavatam and assimilate Bhagavatam. Okay. Now, Prabhu, read this 10th and 11th.
Parikshit Maharaja was one, a great emperor, two, bowed down to by all enemies, three, increasing the prestige of the Pandu dynasty, four, young and powerful, five, possessing kingly opulences. Why did he give up everything to sit on the bank of Ganges and last until death,
Yes,
and
so-
fast until death?
Yes. So the point the sages are asking is, Parikshit Maharaj was a great emperor, and there was no enemy of Parikshit Maharaj. He was very prestigious. He had all the man samman of the Pandu dynasty that his forefathers had. He was very young. He was very powerful. He had all these kingly opulences. So normally, when a king would have no enemies, he would be very young, he would have all the prestige, etc. You would not normally hear that such a king would actually go and renounce, go to a sage and ask him to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. Normally, this is the time where the king is expected to rule the kingdom, to give service to the kingdom as a king, to protect the subjects, etc. The point here being mentioned is that he was such a young, powerful, prestigious king. Then normally in this kind of a situation, the kings do not renounce. The king would renounce at a time when there will be a particular progeny available. They are old enough now, they have retired, and so on. Then they will go. But why such a young king who was so nice, so good? He was ruling everything very nice as a service to the kingdom of their, as a service to the subject of the kingdom. Why did he give up everything to sit on the bank of Ganges and fast until death? So that was the question about Parikshit Maharaj. So now we will recite 12th and 13th verse, and that opportunity I would like to give it to Vrindavaneshwari Mataji. If Mataji are, yes, Mataji,
Yes,
please. Okay,
Yes.
so thank you, Jivan Prabhu. Yeah. Now
Thank you, bro.
yeah, now the question continues about Parikshit Maharaj. So the theme of this verse is devotees actually live for the welfare of others. Now you see here the meter has changed once again. The meter is now 12 syllable long. 12 syllable long. But I don't exactly know the name of this meter. I have to figure out what is the name, but it will be sung something like this.
Vilambita.
Yeah. It will be sung something like this. Shivaya lokasya bhavaya bhutaye
शिवाय लोकस्य भवाय भूतये
ya uttama shloka parayana janaha
या उत्तमा श्लोकपरायणा जना
जीवन्ति नात्मार्थमसो parashrayam.
जीवन्ति नात्मारतनम्
I will repeat. Jivanti natmarthamasau parashramam.
जीवन्ति नात्मारतनम् असौ परास्यम्
Mumocha nirvedya kuta kalevaram.
मुमोच निर्वेद्य कुता कलेवरम्.
Very nice, Mother. You have a very melodious singing of verses. Very good. I really enjoyed. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Shivaya lokasya bhavaya bhutaye. Those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead. Ya uttama shloka parayana janaha. Uttama shloka is referring to, can somebody mention what is the meaning of uttama shloka?
Krishna.
Lord Krishna.
Lord Krishna, one who is glorified with choicest of poetry. Uttama shloka. So ya uttama shloka parayana. Uttam shlok parayana means a devotee. So Narayan parayana, Krishna parayana. So that is actually referring to the devotee. Ya uttama shloka parayana janaha. Janaha means a person, people. Live only for the welfare, development and happiness of others. Jivanti natmartham asau parashrayam. And then they do not live for any selfish interest. Na atma artham. Na atma. Atma means self. Na means no. Artham means some benefit, personal benefit, selfish benefit. Jivanti na atmartham asau parashrayam. They do not live for any selfish interest. Mumoch nirvidya kutha kalevaram. So how could Parikshit gave up his material body, mortal body, which was the shelter for others, Now there is one more aspect of Parikshit Maharaj being mentioned in this verse. So people who are actually devotees of the Lord, they live a life for the purpose of for the purpose of others. So for purpose of helping others. That is the nature of the devotee of the Lord. Now the point here is Parikshit Maharaj, who was a devotee of the Lord and wanted to serve the subjects. He was young, he was not old, he was very powerful. So as a matter of service, as a matter of seva, he would have liked to prolong for a long period so that their subjects remain very peaceful, very opulent, very nice. That was the that should be the intention of the some king like this. Then why did Parikshit gave up his mortal body, which was the shelter of others? So when we know that we are actually going to support our family, why would one like to go and renounce and give up the body? Because they know that the family needs them, and out of service they require my services, they require my help, they require my support, not to exploit them, not to enjoy from them, but as a matter of seva, they would want to continue and live. But so that is the point here. How could Parikshit give up his mortal body, which was the shelter for others? Okay, now Mataji, please read each of these lines.
Yes. Idol kings provide protection to all living entities. He would not allow slaughterhouses or killing of cows. He was not a foolish and partial administrator who would arrange for the protection of one living being and allow another to be killed.
Yes, so here one very important characteristic of an ideal king is that he is not only concerned about the human capital of the kingdom, he is also concerned about the animal capital of the kingdom. If it is a cow, a dog, somebody like that, so that should also be given protection in the kingdom. Not that people take them in the trucks or in the cart and then slaughter them in the slaughterhouses. So that is what the behavior of an ideal king is. Next one, Mataji.
Yeah. King's objective should align with Lord's. The king is the representative of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the king's interest must be identical with that of Supreme Lord.
Yes, so this is another very important point. The king or the ruler of the state should know that the purpose of life is actually self-realization. And the king should be concerned about the spiritual progress of the people at large. Not the current society which says that, okay, it should be secular and we don't have nothing to do with your religion and etc. etc. No, the king also is something who is concerned about the welfare of the spiritual progress. So how the king can take care of the spiritual progress? Maybe he can help allocate the resources for the construction of temples. He can allocate resources for the organization of programs which are imparting Vedic knowledge or spiritual knowledge. he could make sure that the Brahmanas in the society, Vaishnavas in the society who are spiritually learned, Vedic in the Vedic literature, in the purport of all these Vedas, etc., they are given proper protection, they are well fed, they are well taken care of. So the king objective should align with that of the lords. That is the idea. Okay. Next one.
Ideal kingdom is full of opulence. Under the administration of representative king, the kingdom is full of opulence. At that time, human beings need not eat animals. There are ample of food grains, milk, fruit, and vegetables, so that human beings as well as the animals can eat sumptuously and to their heart's content.
Yeah, so here Prabhupada is trying to explain that the ideal kingdom should be full of opulence. It is not that if a king should be careful about the spiritual progress, then the kingdom, it need not be actually very opulent. There should not be much resources there, because simply we are trying to chant Hare Krishna, that is all, and we don't need actually much. No, it is not the point. The point is the kingdom should be well managed, very opulent, well taken care of. The buildings are there, the good roads are there, very good infrastructure is there, so the people get all the right facilities to practice spiritual life, devotional life very nicely. And here Prabhupada is mentioning what could be one aspect of an opulence. There should be no scarcity of food grains, milk, fruit, vegetables. The tree should be laden with all these nice resources from nature, so that the human beings and the animals can eat sumptuously and to their heart's content. So that is the concept of an ideal kingdom here in the purport. Okay, now we'll coming to the last verse of the class today. So we will chant this verse. Tat sarvam na samachakshva.
Tat sarvam na samachakshva.
Prushto yadiha kinchana.
Prishto yada hi kinchana.
Manye tvam vishaye vacham.
Manye tvam vishaye vacham.
Snatam anyatra chandasat.
Snatam anyatra chandasat.
Snatam anyatra chandasat.
Snatam anyatra chandasat.
Yes, very nice. Now, what is being mentioned? Let us start from here. Manye. We know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects. Manye tvam vishaye vacham snatam. Snatam means subjects, and expert in the meaning of vacham. Vacham means the meaning. Manye tvam vishaye vacham snatam. Except some portions of the Vedas. Anyatra chandasa. Except for some portion of the Vedas, you are actually expert in the Vedas. Then tat sarvam na samachakshva. And thus you can clearly explain samachakshva. You can clearly explain prishto yad iha kinchana, the answer to all the questions we have just put to you. So here they are glorifying Sut Goswami. They are posing their confidence in Sut Goswami, that sir, we have full confidence in you. The questions that the sages have, that the question we have put forward to you, we have full confidence that actually you are able to answer it. But here there is one interesting point in the verse. We know that you are the expert in the meaning of all the subjects except some portion of the Vedas. Except some portion of the Vedas. Now what does it mean? Except some portion of the Vedas. So Srila Prabhupada actually clarifies it very beautifully in the purport. Let us read it. Yes, Mataji.
Difference between Brahmana and Parivarjakas. The difference with
Parivrajaka. Brahmana and Parivrajaka. Yeah.
Yes. The difference between the Vedas and the Puranas is like that between the Brahmanas and Parivrajaka's. The Brahmanas are meant to administer some fruitive sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas. But the Parivrajakacharyas or learned preachers are meant to disseminate the transcendental knowledge to one and all.
Yes, Mataji.
As such, should I stop?
Yeah, just a minute. So what is being mentioned here is that there is a difference between Brahmana and Parivrajakas, and the difference is very similar to the difference between Vedas and Puranas. Now, what is that? What does that mean? The Brahmanas are meant to administer some fruitive sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas, but Parivrajakas or learned preachers are meant to disseminate transcendental knowledge to one and all. So that is the idea. The idea is that the Vedas have lot of verses, lot of Sanskrit verses, and these Sanskrit verses are to be recited in a particular tone, in a particular meter, with a particular melody. And then when they do it, the Brahmanas are involved in doing sacrifices, fruitive sacrifices. Say for example, Putra Kameshti Yagya or some other Ashwamedha Yagya. So these are yagyas that are done for some outcome, some result, fruitive result. So Brahmanas are meant to do these Vedic sacrifices. So they need to learn these Vedas in a particular way. They need to practice it, because they need to recite it in a particular meter, in a particular melody, like that. But Parivrajakas are meant to disseminate transcendental knowledge to one and all. So the Brahmanas are doing the Vedic recitation, but the Parivrajakas are mainly interested in distributing the essence of the Vedas, the transcendental knowledge of the Vedas. That is what is the difference between Brahmana and Parivrajakas. So Suta Goswami was a Brahmana or a Parivrajaka? Can you guess here?
Parivrajaka.
Yes, he is a Parivrajaka. He is not a Brahmana. He may probably be able to recite these verses, but in particular, he was the learned person who knew the essence of the Vedas. Okay, next line.
As such, the Parivrajaka acharyas are not always expert in pronouncing the Vedic mantras, which are practiced systematically by accent and meter by the Brahmanas, and who are meant for administering Vedic rites.
Yeah, so here the difference is clear. Parivrajakas may not be expert in renouncing the Vedic mantras, but the Brahmanas are actually expert in doing it. However, Parivrajakas are very well grounded in the transcendental knowledge. They know the essence well. That is why Suta Goswami is being addressed. Although he may not know a particular section of the Vedas. Okay. Next one.
Realization is more important than parrot-like chanting. Srila Suta Goswami's position is not the less important, because he was not an expert in chanting Vedic mantras with metric pronunciations, which depends more on practice than actual realization. Realization is more important than parrot-like chanting.
Yes, so now you remember, you can understand this. Metric pronunciation means what? Like we just discussed various meters, Vasant Tilaka, and then Drut Vilambet, and Anushtup, and like that. We are discussing various type of meters. So it looks nice when we recite these verses in meters with melody. It gives a nice feeling. But the point is, simply you are able to recite these mantras in nice melody does not make you a great realized person. For a great realized person, you really need to know the essence of the scriptures. So here, that's what the Prabhupada is saying. Realization is more important than parrot-like chanting. That is where I would now summarize the class, summarizing the questions here. And I was mentioning in between the class also, this whole discussion can be summarized into three kind of themes. Question about Srimad Bhagavatam, question about Parikshit Maharaj, and question about Shukdev Goswami. For Srimad Bhagavatam, the question was when, where, how, and whose inspiration did Vyasadeva compiled it. This is answered starting from the 4th chapter itself and continues till 7th chapter of 1st canto. Then Parikshit Maharaj, the question asked was, explain us about his birth, his activities, and his renunciation. This is going to be the subject matter of starting from 7th chapter onwards till the 19th chapter, till the end of this 1st canto. And tell us also about Shukdev Goswami. How was he perceived at Hastinapur, and how did his meeting with Parikshit took place? That is the subject matter of chapter number 18 and 19 of the 1st canto. So with that, we will conclude the class today. We will bring the class to rest. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Any takeaways, comments, and questions we will discuss in a short while. Just for your information, Mangala Charan prayers in the next class will be by Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu, and summary of class will be by Manish Kulkarni Prabhu. We are bringing this notice in advance so that you have sufficient time to prepare. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Now you can ask the question you wanted to ask.
No, there is this class is full of so many questions, but I will only talk only the last one that I understood before also, and today it became more firm. A Raja has not to take care of humans, has to take care of animals, and besides that, he has to take care of spiritual development of the whole. So that he becomes a complete,
yes,
successful Raja.
That is the Vedic view of an ideal king. Correct. Yeah.
That's right. Yes. So I will only contribute today only this much.
That is fine.
To my to my co-fellows and to my Guruji. Respect.
Yeah. Thank you.
But there are so many. This is really a wonderful class today. As
you
always.
Like it? Okay. Thank you. Very nice. Bhagavatam is full of and Srila Prabhupada's purport and very nice points. Very nice practical points. Very nice. They are so inspiring, so purifying, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Really. It makes you feel so light. It makes you feel realize what mistakes you have been doing. It makes you realize what I'm lacking. It makes you realize behavior to humans, co-humans, and to animals, and on the whole srishti, nature. Prakriti is not made of me only or humans only. Prakriti is made of all the ingredients. Correct. And it's really, really so much cooling. So many words are there.
Yes, okay.
Thanks million.
Okay. So any other queries? Any other maybe Vijay Lakshmi Mataji, you might have some, or maybe somebody else.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I checked up on that one point only. So other than that, it's a very wonderful.
I will try to find out about
it's a wonderful class, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you all. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Yeah, I can help in that to Mataji or Islam. The basis of Islam was Sakar, Nirakar only. Because they did not believe in Sakar. When Raja Vikramaditta started making 2,500 years back temples, first time, the Sanatan Dharma before that, every individual, every house was a temple. But then he made a black stone and covered it with a structure and called it a temple. And then there is the development, how people perceived it. They did not like it, how a stone can be after some time. Then he gave a face. Then the people realize how one person can be, creator, sustainer, and destroyer. Then he gave 3 heads to a person. People realized for some time. Then they said, no, we have never seen a 3-head person. Then he gave the 3 structures separately. Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, he kept the name, a creator, sustainer, and destroyer of the evil. And this is the history. And when they started making the statues and selling in deity form, the Sakar form, one of the manufacturer's son, Brahmadatt, he refused to accept it. So one day he destroyed some murti's hand, head, leg, and all that. And father came to supply for the shop. He found many murtis damaged. Then he looked for him and he asked him. First, he did not agree. Then he said, see, Papa, I have proved you they cannot help themselves. They could not protect themselves. How they can protect me or other or give son, give wealth or give good family? So then he says, my son, you run away from home, your uncles and cousins will kill you. He ran away from home and he made a sector without Murti Puja, without Murti, without deity. And then when the number became quite enough, his name became from Brahmadatt to Abraham, and the followers, he called it Islam. And in Islam, he said there will be 3 prophets, Moses, Messiah, and Muhammad. And this is how it happened. And rest of the Sanatan Dharma was given the name of Hinduism.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know whether there will be challenges to that story. I don't know. I've been hearing it for the first time that Abraham was actually Brahmadat before.
No,
so you
Prabhu,
can.
thank you so much. Actually,
I don't know.
Even,
I don't know.
I have heard about the very first temple building was by Vikramaditya. That I have heard.
So if you believe that, I give you the source.
See the
of study.
Prabhuji,
Brahma Kumaris have a complete study and complete research on it.
I think Mataji's question was Mataji's question was whether they believe in impersonal absolute truth. So that is the answer is, as per Kartarji, is yes, they believe in impersonal. So let us conclude that discussion at the moment, because it is already quite some time, and not start a separate Islamic Bhagavatam. Okay. So then thank you.
It took me 1 year plus to read all that, the literature from Brahma Kumari's sources, because I was with them for 2 years, and then I learned a lot of things, and this is one of them, basic thing. And sometime I will tell you about yugas also. They have done a huge research on yugas, Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, and Kalyug. It's a really very interesting research work they have done. And I'll next time I will, with your permission, I will narrate that.
You can take Vijay Lakshmi Mataji's phone number and enlighten Mataji also separately.
She can talk to me.
I will give your number to Mataji.
I will be.
Prabhu, my question was on this impersonal word that you had used on that context. I asked.
Okay, fine. Then it is done. Then fine. Okay. Thank you, Ji. Thank you, everyone. And see you next week.
Anyway, I thanks Prabhu for explaining all this.
Okay. Thank you, Ji.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you. I am at service of anybody who wants more clarification.
Okay, Ji. Okay, sir. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna to all. All glories to my Guruji. All glories to Sri.
Hare Krishna.